Alright everyone, welcome back to Jojo 101 where we talk about everything and anything in the Jojo's universe. Today we are going to be discussing Hamon, also known as the Ripple, but I'm going to call it Hamon in this video because it sounds cooler. So, before we dive into what is Hamon, how it functions, do you want to become a Hamon master? Well, to do that, you just gotta simply like and subscribe. And while we're talking about doing all this, why don't you comment down below who your favorite Hamon master is? Personally, mine would probably have to be Joseph. I know, very basic.
Nice!
So what is Hamon? Hamon is an energy that is one-to-one identical to the sun's rays, which the human body produces through controlled respiration. You can get Hamon in a lot of ways, but the main way to get it is by forced Hamon breathing, which is when a trained user, for example Will Antonio Zappelli, jabbed his finger into Jonathan's diaphragm, which is a little organ under your lungs that basically controls your breathing. And if you hit that really hard, basically your lungs empty out, and while you're emptying out your lungs, the master, for example Zappelli, he was able to determine how much potential Jonathan had by how long he breathed. Basically, after doing this, the longer you breathe, the more potential you have in Hamon. But there is another thing. This is a very hard to hit technique, as even a trained master such as Will Antonio Zappelli, when Speedwagon asked to do it, he actually messed up on Speedwagon, and Speedwagon didn't get Hamon. Hamon could also be used as a healing factor, as it has medicinal stuff, such as it boosts your healing factor, and you can also restore bits of life into other things. For example, when Jonathan was training Hamon, he grabbed a tree and started to make it bloom flowers, meaning Hamon courses through every living thing, and you can also use it to empower non-living objects, which we will get into eventually. This one's barely been used, but another skill of Hamon masters is precognition, which you can see the future a little bit. Now, this has only ever been used at most 2 times, the main one being by Master Tom Petty, the Hamon master. He foretold and foresaw Will Antonio's death in part 1, and later on in part 2, we see Lisa do it a little bit by telling Joseph he is in very bad danger. And the last skill, this is probably what a lot of people think of when they think of Hamon, but when you're a Hamon master or start training Hamon, your aging gets slowed a lot. For example, Lisa and Will Antonio Zappelli are both 50, but I mean, Lisa looks younger, Lisa looks about 20, Will looks like 30 to 40. But if you learn Hamon, you are going to age a lot slower than the average person. So kind of what I was mentioning earlier, if you're a Hamon master, anything to you can be a deadly weapon if you empower it with Hamon, such as when Caesar threw a fork at Joseph. So how do you train Hamon? Well, you basically train your breathing in rigorous amounts. For example, the more you train your breathing, the more you can use your Hamon in precise ways. You can enhance it, produce it more, and efficiently use it in battle. But you must undergo very heavy types of training and exercises. For example, Lisa made Joseph and Caesar climb that big oil tower on her island in part 2. The only downside to Hamon is that to use it, you must constantly be breathing, and if your breathing stops for a second or a prolonged period, you will not be able to use Hamon. For example, in part 1, when Jonathan fell underwater against his battle against Bruford and Tarkus, he couldn't use Hamon and had to swim to the bottom of the lake to get an air bubble. And speaking of Hamon, I think we should finally decide to look at the Hamon users. The most notable Hamon users being Will Antonio Zappelli, Jonathan Joestar, Lisa, Joseph Joestar, and Caesar Zappelli, and Cars in his ultimate life form. Other Hamon users being Tom Petty, Dyer, Strazo, Caesar's father Mario Zappelli, Messina, and Loggins, and we barely seen them in part 2, but it's basically confirmed Strazo's disciples have Hamon as well. Now there is many Hamon techniques, so I would just give a quick list. Zoom punch, which you extend your arm like the gum pistol, the ripple cutter, the scarlet overdrive, the turquoise blue overdrive, the overdrive barrage, sunlight yellow overdrive, tornado overdrive, the ripple hair attack, and then there is the bubble cutter, which is based off the Hamon cutter, which is Caesar's thing, because Caesar uses bubbles. So that is it for Hamon. Hamon is mainly used in parts 1 and 2, and is later ditched from that point on, going on with part 3 in exchange for stands. Like I said in the last episode of Jojo 101, where we talked about Will Sabelli, Hamon isn't that interesting, and it's really a very basic power system. I didn't think it understayed, I didn't think it overstayed. I think Hamon played its role and just left the story. And if it did continue to stay in the story, I don't think it would have changed really anything. All it really would have done, if other characters would have learned it, is just to keep them young. That's really it. So, if you like this episode of JoJo 101, why don't you like and subscribe let's make our Hamon masters proud. And like I said at the start, comment down below who your favorite Hamon user is.